This next episode with Dr. Carly Nuday, author of The Water Codes, will take us into the area of ionization, which has a lot of different opinions, a lot of different ideas, and we will address, she will address some of our conceptions, present day conceptions about what the ionization process is. We'll talk about pH and its importance. And while we're talking, think about motion. Think about the effects of motion and spin. Anytime we talk about deficiencies, we should probably at least consider putting the adjective unnecessarily in front.
Yeah, unnecessarily.
Just so people, and even if from here on, even if we don't do it, anyone that's listening, just put the word unnecessarily in there. Know that it goes there.
Yep.
Because none of this is necessary.
No, it's not. It should be something that we are experiencing, provided for by the foods we eat, the air we breathe, the sun we live under. If we have a deficiency, from my research, you would take that all the way back to a problem originating with the structure of water that allowed that deficiency to be created, or that wasn't able to provide the kind of environment where that deficiency could be avoided. All of my work comes back to structure and crystallography. That's just how I've understood things. And working with Dr. Apollo, that's really where things go for me. But on top of that, we do experience these unnecessary deficiencies, again, because we're not applying structured water principles in our healthcare and in our agriculture and our life. We experience these unnecessary deficiencies, and I want people to realize that they really are unnecessary. I'm really glad you brought that up. The reason that babies are given a vitamin K12 or vitamin K shot, thinking B12 and vitamin K. Mm-hmm. The reason they're given a vitamin K shot in the hospital is not because they're born deficient. Mm-hmm. It's because in case a child is circumcised before the 7th day, when vitamin K begins to be naturally produced in the body, now we circumcise usually before day 3. We need vitamin K in order to induce blood clotting for early circumcision, rather than determining whether somebody's a boy or a girl, or if they're going to be circumcised or not. They just give the shot to every baby across the board. Standard medical procedure.
Don't get me started on circumcision.
So, and regardless of the idea behind the practice, that's why we're giving every baby a vitamin K shot born in a hospital.
Which is something nature would have done on its own.
Something nature would have done on its own, and not because we're born deficient.
Is this vitamin K synthetic?
I'm sure it is. Yeah, the vitamin K they use in the hospital, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That's as far as I'm going with that. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll
that's a whole other. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I want to talk about ionizers, and alkaline water.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Okay. So there's a huge misconception that alkaline water is better for your health, and therefore it doesn't matter how we create that alkalinity, how we adjust the pH of that water, as long as it's higher alkaline, it's going to be better for you. That's a huge misnomer, and it's one that we see in a lot of marketing gimmicks. So you can go buy your $3 20-ounce bottle of water because it says high pH. If it's not naturally high pH, it's probably not going to be beneficial. It's either going to be ionized, which is a way, through electrolysis, like Kangen units and things, way of electrocuting the water. They electroshock the water, breaks apart its geometric structure, and releases free hydrogen atoms, at least temporarily. So
for a moment or two. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't provide information back to the water to bring it back again to a high structure. So they say, ionize your water. It'll make the molecules really small, they'll fit through the cells, it'll be a high pH, answer to all of your needs, That's really, really false, because the water coming out of an ionizing unit has been ripped apart. Its structure has been ripped apart, and it hasn't been put back in, so to speak, using a appropriate structuring method. That free hydrogen that they free up, they say, well, it's got a high pH. That's not a structured water. I don't care what the pH is. If it's not a structured water, it's not bioavailable and it's not healthy to the body. A naturally high pH, a naturally alkaline, I don't want to say high pH because obviously, we have a pH scale. We have the middle, neutral at 7. We're slightly more alkaline in a state of health, slightly.
Correct.
So water that is slightly more alkaline naturally is going to be better for you, and that natural alkalinity comes from the addition of trace elements and oftentimes the creation of a positive structure. Ionizers rip apart that structure. Other marketers will just add baking soda to their water and call it a high pH. You'll see it on Whole Foods. One of the most popular waters at Whole Foods is simply water that has sodium bicarbonate. It's baking soda, and it's extremely overpriced, and it's marketed as a high alkalinity and thus better for your health. I think that there's a huge miseducation on the need for alkalinity. The difference in how alkalinity is established,
right,
and the effect that can have on our health.
Yes. Someone did some tests and observed that when they used an ionizer, a special K ionizer you might call it, they could dial in, of course, the level of alkalinity, etc. But they said, for example, if a person was going to pour some water into their drinking bottle to go on their morning jog, he said the moment you took the first pump of your arm to shake the water, the ionization broke. He said essentially it's not as stable. And see, that makes sense too. You talked about the information.
Yeah.
Just ripping the molecules apart, the hydrogen apart, making free hydrogen without the connectivity.
Yeah.
I know I like, we had some water the other night in a can, but they showed their magnesium content. And I know there's some products, for example, that are intended to generate molecular hydrogen, and but it's used. Magnesium is one of the components to that.
Yeah.
You see, so the elements, but those provide a stable, and really when you're talking about the objective of those products and compounds is to produce or increase the amount of molecular hydrogen in the water, and that is natural ionization. Those are protons and electrons. That's electricity. It ultimately gets converted into energy. Yes, usable energy.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
But there's a difference between natural ionization and electroshock therapy
force,
for
yes.
water. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
So that's the water that we had the other night. It's marketed as a high pH, but it's naturally high pH, and there's no added ingredients. They don't add sodium bicarbonate, and baking soda is not bad for your health. I don't mean that in a way to say that baking soda is very good for you, and it can be very beneficial to add a small amount of baking soda to your water, but to increase your cost of your product so much because you're marketing it. I mean, it's just misleading.
With such an inexpensive addition.
It's just really misleading. So,
I used to have the question even in terms of organic foods and stuff, because they're not using the chemicals, they're not using this and the other things, but yet we pay more for that. And so when you have real benefit, and of course what they've done, the prices are starting to balance and come closer. But on the other hand, the word organic is starting to lose its intrinsic meaning, because it's become institutionalized, and they've created these hoops that they got to go through.
Yeah.
So
And we see something on the shelf labeled organic without USDA organic, it's got the stamp, without realizing that there's actually a level and a grading system to how organic something is according to the USDA. Has it been grown without chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides, or has it been grown without chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides on land that hasn't used chemicals and pesticides and herbicides for a certain number of years? I mean, these are two different grades, and we're not shown that on our labeling. But of course, we're not even shown country of origin sometimes anymore. We're not shown whether it's genetically modified or not. Of course, we're not going to see what level of organic was potentially applied. But organic farming is going to be, I definitely feel, one of the first real beneficiaries of applying this technology to their agriculture development.
One thing we've observed is what would I call it? The ripeness, the extent, the range of ripe, the sweet spot of its ripeness is extended out. When a plant, a crop is grown, like strawberries, for example, berries, things like that, fruits, they come into their season of ripeness. Victor Schauberger talked about water as having its season when it's ripe. That's when you're supposed to take it. He's really describing certain conditions that need to exist, which we today call structure, etc. But in fruits, for example, when they become ripe, meaning now they have what's necessary to give, they are able to, the period is actually longer.
I understand.
Okay, we've seen it where it's become viable to grow fruits in California and ship them to Japan, and they maintain their ripeness throughout the journey over, and also on a shelf somewhere in Japan before and then also in a home before they're eaten.
Without requiring the chemical wax-based preservatives that so much of our produce is
or
is
irradiation,
or irradiation. Yeah,
I mean, all of those things. Everything is energetic, and all energies have some type of impact. And so, if we irradiate, or not, we wouldn't, I wouldn't, but if a plant or a shipment is irradiated to maintain its appearance, it's also been killed. Its nutrient value and its ability to convey healthful energies has been compromised. It's been put down.
Heavily compromised.
Not only that, the disruptive effect of the irradiating itself has actually replaced the health giving. So the disruptive effects of the radiation now will be transferred to the consumer.
It's actually stored in the water molecules of the structure of the fruit.
And transferred to the consumer.
That's right. So, I mean, the consequences of these kinds of practices, we do them without even recognizing the consequences. And even once we recognize the consequences, for some reason, oftentimes these practices still stay in place for a good while. You mentioned the other day they have inertia. But yes, through structuring principles, we're able to see that just like the structure of the water maintains the structure of a cell, it maintains the structure of that fruit, keeps it from breaking down, keeps things from rotting, if you will, maintains the structure of that vitamin content, so you can measure how much nutrients a plant loses every day that it's off the vine, and it's an exponential decline. Because every day that it's off the vine, it starts to lose its life force, it starts to break down its structure, and vitamin and nutrient content is dramatically reduced. We don't see that with plants and fruits that have been grown with structured water. At least we don't see it to that kind of degree. Marcel Vogel was doing experiments, and a lot of people are familiar with Emoto's rice experiment. But Marcel Vogel was also doing experiments, structuring fluids with the protocols that he designed to structure them with, and witnessing an extended preservation rate of milk and of juice, of water that would not putrefy. Stagnant water left alone over time oftentimes will start to putrefy. He witnessed a dramatic extension of preservation. And of course now we have people at Princeton that are talking about applying using the structure of water to increase the preservation rates of pharmaceutical drugs. Well, the same way.
Oh, God. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I know. So the same way that they discuss using that anomalous structure property of water to maintain extend the preservation rate of pharmaceutical drugs.
That is the definition of an oxymoron.
It is moronic indeed. But the point still stands that the same way they can see that applying to the preservation rate of drugs, we see that applying to the preservation rate of vitamins and nutrients in fruits, or in the body for that matter. Preservation rate of our DNA, preservation rate of our cell life,